Bangladesh is reeling from its latest political crisis. Sheikh Hasina controversially scrapped that arrangement in 2011.
Actually, BNP is more popular than Awami League now, according to those surveys and according to those results.
At some point I just want to clarify one point with you. Any election where the opposition parties have boycotted it, that...
আসসালামু আলাইকুম বন্ধুরা, আপনারা একটা ভিডিওর অংশবিশেষ দেখেছেন। আমি পুরো ভিডিওটি আপনাদেরকে এখন নিয়ে যাচ্ছি। বন্ধুরা, আপনারা দেখেছেন ডাক্তার আসিফ নজরুল আল জাজিরার মুখোমুখি, এবং এই পর্বে আপনারা দেখবেন শেখ হাসিনা কিভাবে তত্ত্বাবধায়ক সরকার ধ্বংস করেছে এবং কিভাবে বাংলাদেশের মানুষের ভোটার অধিকার হরণ করেছে। চলুন আমি কথা না বাড়িয়ে আপনাদেরকে মূল ভিডিওতে নিয়ে যাই।
Bangladesh is reeling from its latest political crisis. Sheikh Hasina controversially scrapped that arrangement in 2011. Instead, she's appointed a special election-time coalition with her at its head. Opposition groups are concerned the vote could be rigged and want a caretaker government to oversee the polls as before. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party says it will from the capital Dhaka.
All right,
let me bring in Asif
under any
here.
Circumstances we don't trust
let me bring in Asif to give us a bit of analysis, because this is clearly an issue which has caused a lot of violence in Bangladesh. Firstly, is it possible to have elections in this atmosphere?
I don't think you can actually conduct an election under this situation. You can conduct a one-party election defying public opinion and defying the death of the people, defying the aspiration of the people. But that election will never be participated by all the parties. And if you look at the current scenario, if you look at the survey reports, if you look at the election results in the local body elections, actually BNP is more popular than Awami League now, according to those surveys and according to those results. So if you do not create a situation in which the potentially most popular party could not participate, that election cannot end up the bitterness, that election cannot bring up any solution.
So any boycotting of the elections, I just want to clarify one point with you. Any election where the opposition parties have boycotted it, that election is going to have real doubts as to its legitimacy, isn't it?
Exactly. And if you look at the political history of Bangladesh, in 1988, the election was boycotted by opposition parties. And that government did not sustain. It lasted only for 2 years. If you look at 1996, at that time BNP was in power and that election was boycotted by the opposition parties. That government lasted only for a few months. And if you look at the present scenario, the point I'm trying to make is, if you look at the public mood, if you look at the surveys, how many people actually want caretaker government? According to all the surveys, the number is between 80% to 90%, because we have experienced what happened under the political party-led government when election takes place. If you look at the history of Bangladesh, you can divide it between two parts. One is pre-caretaker government, another one is post-caretaker government. So in the pre-caretaker government, all the elections were held under the political party-led government, and all those parliament failed actually to complete its tenure. Not a single parliament could succeed to complete its tenure. If you look at the election held under caretaker government, all the parliaments actually succeeded to complete its tenure. The only one comparison tells you about the comparative acceptability of the caretaker system.
I can see that Asif wants to answer this. Let's bring Asif in. Asif, what are you saying to that?
I just want to tell my friend from Awami League one thing. Look, local level government is a different equation, because the stake is much lower there. When at the local level election, when a ruling party gets defeated, it does not lose its power. But during the national election, parliamentary election, the stake is very, very high. If you lose the election, you are going to be in opposition and you are going to be harassed, oppressed by the ruling party for the next 5 years. So you cannot compare national election to the local level election.
Okay, gentlemen, I want to move on and examine how much of the political unrest is caused by the personal rivalries between the two leaders, Sheikh Hasina and Khalida Zia. Now, these are two women who cast a very long shadow over Bangladeshi politics. Sheikh Hasina, the country's current Prime Minister, and her rival, former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, are both battling to be the country's next leader. They head up the two most powerful parties, Hasina, the Awami League, of course, and Zia, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Now, Interestingly, they weren't always political enemies. In 1990, they actually joined forces to bring down the dictatorial rule of Hussein Mohammed Ershad. Since then, though, they've become bitter competitors as power has shifted between their two parties.
In the country. How many had an agenda?
Let me bring Asif in because I think this is a really interesting point. And Asif, I wanted to ask you, finally, are we seeing a Bangladesh struggling with its identity? Is this part of the problem, that you have the sort of secular democracy on one side and the other advocating a state with Islam at its core? Is that one of the problems adding to the tension here?
I think if you talk to the general people, this is not a big issue for them, whether they will be identified as secular or non-secular. But if you talk to the political parties, they have made it a very, very big issue. But let me also remind you that Jamaat-e-Islam was also political ally of Awami League on many, many occasions. In 1986, in 1991, they actually sent their presidential candidate to seek the blessing of Ghulam Azam. In 1995, they joined hand with Jamaat-e-Islami in a movement against BNP.
বন্ধুরা আপনারা দেখেছেন এবং আপনারা বুঝেছেন এই শেখ হাসিনা কিভাবে মানুষের ভোটার অধিকার কেড়ে নিয়েছে। এই মূল পর্বটি মূলত 25 মিনিটের। আমি পুরো ভিডিওটি লোড দিতে পারি নাই। আমি পুরো ভিডিওটা আশা করি ইনশাআল্লাহ নেক্সট পর্বে আমি লোড দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করব। সে পর্যন্ত আপনারা আমার চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব করে রাখুন যাতে পরবর্তী পর্ব আপনারা পেতে পারেন।